Hi everybody, happy Friday. Thank you for joining me for an early stream. 80s Model, thank you for gifting a membership. That's very generous of you. We have an early stream today because it's Friday and I have stuff I have to do in the afternoon. So we're having an early stream, although that means that some of you can join when you normally could not. So it's fun to get a different crowd in here. So we have some very juicy stories to discuss today. The first one in particular is quite juicy. So the way live streams work, just a reminder, please keep your comments. Oh, by the way, Lone Wolf, thanks for gifting 5 memberships. That's very kind of you. So the way it works is please keep your comments and your super chats to the topic at hand. And if you ask a question before I open up the section to questions, I may or may not be able to answer it. Happy Friday to you too, Margie. That's a nice photo. And then at the end of the stream, of course, as always, we can do the Q&A where you can ask me anything that you want. So if you have a question that doesn't pertain to today's subject matter, save it for then. Thanks for gifting a membership, Catalin. And thanks, Jerome. Jerome, always so generous, consistently gifting a membership. Thanks, 80s Model. All right, so let's get started with James Gunn versus Gal Gadot. Oh, this is a good one. I got lots of images here for us. All right, so boop. Oh, wait, I moved this from the other day. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I like that picture of James Gunn that I found for this because James Gunn very much has that approach of like, what, who, me? Come on, guys, leave me alone. But it's crazy. It's different management, same drama. And it's very shocking, in fact, to see how similar it is and that it doesn't seem to be going and stopping anytime soon. But I think it all boils down to what really happened in that meeting between Gal Gadot and James Gunn. No, 11, no, for sure. It's a he said, she said situation. I did take a poll on it, but let's first start with how this story happened, all right? I didn't see Heart of Stone poke. They wouldn't send out screeners except to just a few publications, and the reviews, as you might have seen this morning, are not good. All right, so anyway, Gal Gadot has been promoting Heart of Stone, and she filmed these interviews a while ago because it had to be prior to the actors' strike, because otherwise she couldn't promote it. So she came out and she said that James Gunn and Peter Safran told her they were going to do Wonder Woman 3 together. And she didn't just leave it at that. She said that she really went into it, and she said they told her that you're in the best hands. We're going to develop Wonder Woman 3 with you. We love you as Wonder Woman. You've got nothing to worry about. Oh, this sounds very similar to David Ayer saying that James Gunn told him everything was going to be great later too, and not to worry about it. And so it's pretty bad. I know that some people are not sympathetic to these comments that are being made, but I think these people all feel that they were lied to in a business of connections. So she quoted him. She didn't just say they said we were going to do it. She went for the quote, and she said that these guys looked her in the eye and, assured her that everything was going to be great. Now, so James Gunn was very quiet, as we discussed when this first started to unfold. However, some people have unearthed some of his tweets. So he tweeted back when he was having all the first meetings with the Snyderverse people. And someone said, what about Gal? Why would you don't let Gal go? And James Gunn said, we didn't let Gal go. Ezra's movie is already made and Henry doesn't fit with what I have for Superman. So here he seems to be very much implying that Gal Gadot is staying, right? And then he has another tweet here where he says, someone says, what about Gal Gadot? And he says, we met with her weeks ago. So he's admitting in this tweet that they did have a meeting, right? And so Gal Gadot is saying this was what was said to her in the meeting. So this story was unfolding and everybody was talking about it. And then yesterday, oh, this is tough. Variety did Warner Brothers' dirty work. It's crazy to see Warner Brothers still doing this to talent in the trades. I almost would have referred that James Gunn come out himself. As long as James Gunn is already doing this and put himself out there, I think he's got to resolve it himself. So I think he should have just said, honestly, I probably would have just said nothing and let it never happen, quite frankly. Although I guess he would have been asked about it until the end of time. So he should have just shut it down himself because it just looks real sketchy. And also, people felt that he was going to have a more transparent, more friendly DC. He said he was going to have one. So it's kind of weird. I agree with you, Michael. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I think that it's, okay, so I lost my train of thought. Sorry. It's early. Woo, early stream. So anyway, so we thought it was all going to be very different. We thought they were going to handle themselves differently. But instead, Variety says they have sources that tell them that this conversation never happened and that they never made this promise to Gal Gadot. And basically, she's taking crazy pills, which is a really horrible approach to take, to just really humiliate her like that. And all the other trades picked it up. And it took, I'm surprised it took a couple of days. I guess because the story didn't go away, that they decided to do it this way. But I think this was like a really big mistake because it's the same backstabbing that they've been doing for a while now. There's a long list. I'll go through it now. Okay? Henry Cavill had a similar situation, although in that instance, James Gunn is not the one who promised Henry Cavill that he would come back. That was the regime that he replaced. So I don't think that James Gunn is responsible for that, quite frankly. Let's be fair. Let's be fair. I don't think James Gunn is responsible for the Henry Cavill debacle. He didn't make any such promises, and he doesn't want to use them going forward. So even though it was, and I told Henry Cavill that I publicly was quite loud about it, and I was like, Henry Cavill, you don't have a deal. What are you doing? Ben Affleck, though, James Gunn was caught in a lie about Ben Affleck, saying that Ben Affleck wanted to come back and direct, and then Ben Affleck was like, I am never coming back to DC to direct. Dwayne Johnson got really stabbed in the back by the new Warner Brothers executives who picked James Gunn over him. And James Gunn, of course, did not support the Black Adam movie, even though he got the gig like right after Black Adam opened. And he just was very quiet on Dwayne Johnson's movie, which again, I can understand that, maybe there would be some benefit to being a little gracious, but you can't hold that against Gunn in that situation. But then there's also the David Ayer thing, with David Ayer going around earlier this very week, or at the end of last week, saying that James Gunn told me that we are definitely going to release the Ayer cut. And so I think that's really bad. So I took a poll, all right? And I said, so many pictures, where's this going to go? Hold on. I took a poll because it's really all about public opinion. And I said, what do you think really happened in that room? So I said, did Gunn and Safran really tell Gal Gadot that they will make a new Wonder Woman movie together? 47, the poll's not totally over yet, but almost about 50% believe that they did say that and they never had any intention of following through with it at the time. That's pretty bad. This isn't a scientific poll, obviously, but 50%, that's pretty bad. You want the poll here? All right, Mish, we'll do the poll here. Did James Gunn really say that to Gal Gadot? Yes, but changed mind. Yes, but never meant it. No, Gal mistaken. And then no, Gal, nice try, Gal, which is a polite way of saying you think she's lying. Okay. I think it would be nuts for Gal Gadot to lie. And by the way, even if you're not a member, you can vote in the polls. So the next, then everybody was pretty split among the other options. But way over 50% do believe that James Gunn actually said that, which is a lot. That's like 70% feel that James Gunn actually did say that, even if maybe he, had the best intentions at the time. But most people feel that he did not. Although I got a lot of Snyderverse fans, so that might slightly skew the poll. So while you guys vote, I'll tell you what my thoughts are on it. I feel that there's no way that Gal Gadot would lie to that degree. Some people are trying, and again, people in the trades, I think on Warner Brothers and DC side, are trying to spin it. I saw someone saying she was trying to pull a Dwayne Johnson. I don't believe that's true. I believe that was actually said to her because it's too easy for James Gunn to shut it down. Because if James Gunn really hadn't said it, he wouldn't immediately have said, "I didn't say that." I think his silence confirms that he said it to her. Because James Gunn is very vocal on the Twitters. So he would have immediately said, "No way that I said that." Like, come on, gal. Like, what are you doing to me? I think that he would have done that if that had been the case. Now, the silence, just like he never responded to Ben Affleck saying he was never going to direct a movie. Ben Affleck, James Gunn never said anything about that. He just, slinked away. So I think that he definitely said it. Now, that means to me the question is, did Gal Gadot, Jim thinks she's trying to pull a Dwayne Johnson. All right, Jim, you can believe whatever you'd like. That's certainly fair. But, so there's two options for Gal Gadot. She might have said it because there's been no movement on it and she wants to force him to move forward with the movie, right? Because it is embarrassing for her. Obviously, on the press tour for Heart of Stone, everyone kept saying, "Are you going to be Wonder Woman again? Have you been fired?" For the role that defines her still, her only successful role. So that might be the reason that she said it. However, I kind of tend to feel that she felt it would go one of two ways. Either he would step up and honor his word, or she would embarrass him. It really, at least she's like, if I'm not Wonder Woman anymore, I'm not going to let you get away with letting me just fade into the darkness, right? Like, she's like, I'm going to tell everybody that you promised me and looked me in the eye and said this to me. This is so similar to what happened to Zack Snyder, too, with Jeff Johns. It's insane, this looking people in the eye and lying to them. And why do it? Why would you do it? It makes no sense to me. Why couldn't James Gunn even have just said, "We're not sure what we're going to do"? Why go this extra distance? And why did he tell David Ayer they were definitely going to release the Suicide Squad cut? Why didn't he just say, "That's not my decision, David"? It's just crazy. So I think Gal Gadot is, she might not be the greatest actress, but she's not stupid. And I think Gal Gadot felt it was, either way, she would either get Wonder Woman 3 or she would land a punch on Gunn and further tarnish his reputation. And I think that's worked. I think now, Wonder Woman, the character, kind of didn't have this pall over her. But now everyone's going to be like, "Man, you shouldn't have done Gal Gadot like that." Like, why'd you have to do it like that, man? So, yeah. So let's see what the poll is, and then you guys can ask me questions about this. And also, I do feel that people joining DC should be cautious because this is just to be humiliated by this. It really is. Hollywood really is a business of relationships. And again, this underscores how bad it is to constantly tweet with the general public. These tweets from Gunn that I have up here, these tweets are all responses to fan questions. There was no need for him to even answer any of these. Oh, who gifted some memberships there? Oh, Boab, thank you for gifting 10 memberships. That's so generous of you. All right, so I'm closing the poll, and then I'll answer your questions on this story. All right, so the poll was 64%, very close to the online poll, say yes, he said it, and he never meant it. So that's really not good. 23% additionally feel that he did say it, but that he changed his mind. Again, I do feel if that was the case, he would just step up and take that accountability. By the way, I would like to also point out they don't seem to be developing any other DC projects outside of the Creature Commandos, because it was already almost in production, and Superman Legacy. I think because The Flash did so poorly, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to hold off on everything else, also because of the strikes, and see how Superman Legacy does. Because I think this is just really not good. But look, so that's overwhelming number of you feel that he said it, with only 11% overall feeling that he did not. That's considerable. All right, so let me look at some of these questions here and comments. So as told by Alex says, Rock, Henry, and Gal need to do a movie together. That's funny. I was telling someone the other day, I felt that The Rock and Henry Cavill should just go do a movie together. I don't know if I'd put Gal Gadot in it. She was in Red Notice. I feel bad. I like Gal Gadot personally, but Her acting's been so bad in some recent projects, I would be nervous to put her in something. I'd be like, I can't. The Rock's like, I'm super strong, but I can't carry all of you. Capes and Tights says, I think it's pretty obvious Gunn has not settled on anything, so I think when this was said, Gala's Wonder Woman was still in the cards. Yeah, but I think then you shouldn't make promises. I think that's a really bad thing to do. Jennifer, hey Jennifer, says, I'm here with popcorn watching all the Gunn versus Gadot mess. Yeah, it's real bad. Nilfinity says, James Gunn either needs to announce a complete reboot or go silent until Legacy is released or we see the first trailer. There is just too much drama. That's good advice. That's good advice. And he really should have done a full reboot. And then there wouldn't be a question of who's staying and who's leaving. You know, we wouldn't have to have this. And he wouldn't have to have a referendum on every single character. He'd be like, it's done. They're all gone. You don't have to ask me because I've replaced every single one of them. That's right, Visionary. So much drama before the first movie. Before they've even rolled camera on the first film. Louis Berry would like a Wonder Woman 3 as an Elseworld story. I think it's too confusing, and I think it would seem unfair to fans that she would get to stay and Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck would not. Heather says, Rachel Brosnahan needs to wear Kevlar from the backstabbing. Yeah. And then Gavin says, Daddy's a bad person because his co-workers love him. I don't know. I hear mixed things, Gavin. Jim says, Rock, Henry, and Gal, rock, paper, scissors. That's funny. And then Jonathan says, this DC drama will make a good documentary someday. I mean, there's so many moving parts. I mean, maybe. Let's page Ryan Murphy, right? And get a feud. And Iraq says, the DC film curse strikes again. Thanks for your reporting on this, Grace. My pleasure. It really is. I said before, I never saw anybody get, cursed as quickly as Dwayne Johnson. That was the fastest turnaround I ever saw. That was like whiplash. But I feel like everybody eventually deeply regrets joining DC. Brett Crandall says, was the Authority ever actually going to appear, or was that just to avoid spoilers? From what I heard, that was just to avoid spoilers. And I think that maybe he's thinking of making an Authority movie, but I think that was just to hide out that he was putting like a JSA type team in Superman Legacy. Paul Brunel, that's right. Where's Peter Safran during all this? Peter Safran's like, what? I work on DC? What? That's crazy. And then Frosty the Mexican Snowman feels that Gunn is not saying anything because he doesn't want to embarrass her. But they did just embarrass her in the trades, right? I mean, that's humiliating. That's really, really embarrassing the way they did it. And they didn't even say they changed their mind. That would have saved her, been a little bit more polite thing to do to her. But instead, to say that she was mistaken and that had never, ever been said to her, I think is horrific. The Charles Merritt says, what would you think if Katie O'Brien became the new Wonder Woman? I personally think she'd be a great choice. I really like Katie O'Brien. I don't know if she's right for Wonder Woman, but I hope she gets something else. And I hope we see more of her in Star Wars. I really like her a lot. Lloyd Lester says, Grace, is Todd Phillips and Matt Reeves' film somewhat safe from this mess? I don't know. I think the more damage that's done to DC, the more it hurts DC overall. I mean, hopefully, if these films come in with banger trailers, which I suspect they will, everyone will just forget about it. But it's pretty bad. Frosty the Mexican Snowman says, funny how we never get drama like this in the Matt Reeves universe. That's funny, the same thing. Or Joker films. I think because they're isolated and they don't have to tie into anything else. That helps them quite a bit. Although there was a lot of drama about, the Matt Reeves film with Robert Pattinson. Until we saw the trailers and we were like, oh my God. Thanks, Jonathan Garcia. Jay Kelly says, just because Variety says it doesn't make it true. Well, I think when it seems to be leaked intentionally by the studio, it does. I think the studio definitely leaked that, and all the other trades picked it up. That's the studio response. Make no mistake. Whelm says, I stand by my belief that the DCAU and Young Justice teams should be responsible for managing a live-action DC. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the animated movies have been good as of late. Little drama, and they truly understand and love the characters. We'd be in a better place. I really think they just need a hard reboot and a break. And I don't think that James Gunn is a creative executive. I think, I did like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 quite a bit. I did like the Christmas special as well. So I think that maybe there's a really great DC film in him, but I don't think that he's the right person to run the studio. Nilfinity says, how much will the uncertain future of Warner Brothers affect Gunn's plans? Thanks, Nico. I think that they're going to probably put pause on almost everything until they find out what's happening with Superman Legacy, if that does well. Quite frankly, that's what I would think they would maybe do. And then Chico says, do you think her version of the Evil Queen will save Gal Gadot's career? Nope. I think that might be, I would say final nail in the coffin, but you would think Heart of Stone would be the final nail in the coffin. I mean, let's see how the movie looks, but I think that Snow White movie is going to really not do well. Innovative David says, read a quote recently, says, the energy you release into the world will expand. Be careful, Jimmy. Love the first Wonder Woman. I do wish there was a viable path forward for Gal. The first Wonder Woman was great. It really was. Boab says, another season of The Real Housewives of DC. That's hilarious. I love it. And Nico says, Gal is in her Joker era. Well, Justin Tyler says, when do you think we will get ultimate clarity on the DCU? Who's leaving, who's staying, how the continuity will work? Well, if there had been a Comic-Con this summer and there hadn't been an actor strike, you might have gotten it then. But I think that I really feel everything's going to hinge on the success of Superman Legacy. So here's hoping it's good, or here's hoping it's awful, and then we finally can get out of this mess. We still don't know what's going to happen with Warner Brothers necessarily. Will Warner Brothers be sold to Universal? That's, I think, still very much a potential outcome. All right, so Danny says, this is so funny because Margot Robbie is probably staying as Harley. Yeah, although let's see how Lady Gaga does. I'm very excited for Lady Gaga's Harley Quinn. I think she's going to be phenomenal. Latino Boy says, at this point, I feel like Matt Reeves might as well start making his own DC universe because, as I always suspected, James Gunn was a bad choice. I think they should have built off Matt Reeves from day one, And I heard that they did try to get him to be part of the new DC universe, even though James Gunn said that wasn't true. James Gunn's a real wild card. He will just say anything. And I've said that for a while, but now everybody else is starting to pick up on the fact that that's true. All right, let's move on to the next story. He does have some very strong fans, though. All right, next story. All right, story number 2. Hold on. All right. Boop. Okay, the WGA talks are maybe resuming today. Take 2. They met last Friday, and they both said, we hate you. Both sides said they hate each other. They were like, you're horrible. You're not giving me what I want. I can't believe I even came into this stupid meeting. You guys all suck. So they separated, and then like just a couple of days later, the studio said, okay, let's try this again. Because the studios, I think, really want to settle the Writers Guild strike to put the actors out there in the cold so that the actors are the ones holding up production. So I think that's the new strategy. They're like, okay, and we'll see what the writers get out of that. Hopefully that'll work for them. So the main issues are mini rooms, because the writers don't like mini rooms. They feel that's not enough writers to be hired, and then everybody else is freelance, and so they don't get to participate as much as they should. So they don't like mini rooms. So there's mini rooms. Artificial intelligence, and then residuals, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. I want to have a whole section breaking down residuals. So we'll see if there's any movement today. They're going to meet later this afternoon because they're, of course, on West Coast time. And they're going to see, what's on the table. That's kind of what these initial meetings mean when they just say, okay, let's meet up and see what we're willing to discuss. So the Writers Guild has been very clear about what they need to have addressed. And the studios today are going to put forward another proposal as to what, is now on the table. And then the Writers Guild, in response, will see if that seems like a fair enough starting point to resume talks next week. I think they have to be really careful. Hey, Trisha. I'm sorry you got into a car accident and that you're in the hospital, Trisha. You have been missed. I'm glad my Loki trailer enthusiasm kept you going. Trisha, I'm so glad you're okay. And thank you for giving us an update. Feel better. We send you good vibes in the hospital. I hope you're out, but it's good to hear from you. So anyway, I think that the situation is that they are very quickly approaching government intervention on this strike because it's really hurting California's overall economy, and so many people are being affected financially. And politicians are itching to get in and solve this because it would be a very nice feather in their cap. Look at all of you guys wishing Trisha to get better. I love it. Feel the love, Trisha. Feel the love. So I'm really glad you're okay, Trisha. I'm really glad you're okay. So the LA mayor wants to step in and negotiate a peace treaty. And then also, of course, Gavin Newsom really wants to get in here because he feels that could help with his presidential ambitions. He's on the side of the worker, and he'll get this settled. And there's also, of course, a ton of big donors in Hollywood, so that would certainly be helpful to him. And so they really want to get in there. And I think that once the government gets involved, it might not be fun for anybody. They say that the best compromise means no one's really very happy. And so I think that the studios, I think that's something else that everybody should be worried about. Yay, Trisha says she is out of the hospital and feeling much better. Yay. Trisha, it's so nice to have you back. Your comments are always so excellent. All right, so let's do the third story of the day. That was a very short little story, but I just wanted to update you, and I need 3 stories for the day. But this one I feel very passionate about. Okay, so third story of the day. Boom, baby. Let's talk residuals, because I think there's a lot of confusion about how Hollywood works as a business. Seeing on some of the comments about poor Billy Porter having to sell his home, and then I'll do Q&A at the end. Alan says, I don't think the studios have been handling this well enough to pull this off. They have been so unreasonable to the writers and lost trustworthiness. Well, I think the studios are trying to have a position of strength. However, I feel like the studios are protecting or hiding a very, very bad truth. And that is that, as we discussed yesterday, streaming services were a real bad idea. That's right, Dory Does Voices. Today is the yikes stream. Yikes, this is bad. And I think that streaming has really significantly damaged Hollywood. And I don't really know if Hollywood can be fixed unless they get rid of streaming, quite frankly. So this is how my thought process unfolded about residuals and why I wanted to talk about it. All right? So not only was there the Billy Porter story that he had to sell his home because he was supposed to have a movie and a show coming up. So basically, Billy Porter said, I have to sell my home because I was supposed to be in a movie and I was supposed to have a series coming up. But now that those have both been canceled or delayed indefinitely because of the actors' strike, I don't have any money coming in and I'm not liquid. And so I have to sell my home. And he was very upset and he said, F you to Bob Iger and whatever studio executive said, we're going to get them to lose their homes because Billy Porter said it's happened to me. I believe Billy Porter is also going through a divorce right now, too. So Billy Porter's having a tough time, which is a shame because he's such a nice man. But a lot of people in the comments said, David said, thank you for your content. I had a bad birthday this week. And I'm sorry you had a bad birthday. Feel better. That sucks that you had a bad birthday. But always try and stay positive. I'm glad that I could help keep you positive. And then a lot of people said, oh, well, Billy Porter was living beyond his means. And so that's his fault. And that was a horrible thing to say. I think people just don't understand the way the Hollywood pay system works, which I'm going to explain to you in a moment. And then the other thing that I saw yesterday, which are like a day or so ago, was this story, this opinion piece for the LA Times from a writer who worked on Suits. And as you know, from Movie Math, Suits is blowing up on Netflix and Peacock. Okay? Look at everybody wishing David a happy birthday. You guys are so nice. The BTT community is so kind. That's really sweet. So, Danny, I'm not sure why Suits is so popular. It's a good show. It's like a watered-down kind of Billions in Succession. It's pretty good. I liked it when I watched it. I watched it when it aired, and it was solid. I watched it. I think I watched the whole thing, actually. It was good. But anyway, it's blowing up on Netflix and Peacock. And this guy said, I only got $259.71 for that. All those minutes, and look how little money I got. Trying to point out that the residual system is broken. It is broken, but I think the problem is that nobody's making money off of the streaming content. That's the issue. KP Productions says it's clear at the streaming game the studio said they could produce film like they do TV and made a huge miscalculation. And then Thag Resort says, so now that we've been conditioned for streaming, the multiplexes for blockbusters and cable is a dinosaur that no one wants anymore. Oh, so what's the solution? You're not going to be able to do streaming. You're going to have to do away with streaming, a subscription. I think streaming you can have, but I would get rid of subscription-based services. I think that it would be all a la carte, like iTunes, and you would pay, like for instance, if you wanted to watch the new Secret Invasion, you would have to buy the season. And it would drop the episodes for you whenever they were supposed to drop, and that's how you would buy them. And you could either get a season pass or you could buy them individually, just like you do on iTunes. And that's really, I think, what they're going to have to do. So Tricia says, does Netflix and Peacock pay the residuals check? Well, that's the big question. I think that there's the licensing fee that they probably paid up front to get the show. And then, so you really would only be getting a part of that licensing fee, which is very different than residuals, which are sold per episode, because of the ads that play on them. So, because, the streamer can't put ads on this. I mean, so they're not going to pay as high a licensing fee. Because here's the thing. So so this is why I wanted to discuss this. So in the old format, you would get money off of the ads that ran on the reruns or the show that you have, right? That's why I told you that once a sitcom or show would get to 5 seasons, they had to have a little party because it meant it could be, it could go into, syndication. It's so long, I forgot the term. Syndication. And you would go into syndication, and then you would be able to play on like the secondary cable networks and stuff like that, or like 11 o'clock or like 5 o'clock, before and after prime time. And, you would get tons of money for the rest of your life. It was amazing. That's how Hollywood worked. TV, movies, you would make a ton of money up front, but TV actors and anybody who worked on a TV show, even behind the scenes, was pretty much set for life if they got on a hit show. Even a show that just ran for 5 seasons, like 30 Rock, would be considered really solid. Now, though, streaming is subscription-based. So, for instance, Suits is blowing up on Netflix and Peacock, right? But that doesn't make any additional money for Netflix and Peacock. I mean, sure, they combat churn and they keep people on their service, but they're not making any additional money. It doesn't matter to them how much you watch. The only thing that they care about is keeping you subscribed. So that, I think, is a very harsh truth that people aren't considering. This writer is saying, look how valuable my show is to Netflix. And I think the studios don't want to come forward and say, well, actually, it's of no value to us. I mean, it's nice. It's nice for you. Maybe it'll result in another season of Suits, but it doesn't really make us any additional money. And so that, I think, is the dirty truth, and that they don't want anybody to know. So that's really interesting to me. So SAG has been saying the system has changed. And so, hey, good morning, Jacob. SAG is saying the system has changed and it no longer supports the cyclical nature of the business. And that's true, but it's changed to such a degree that you're not going to be able to make it go back to be the way that it was if you maintain streaming. Now, if you maintain this situation and there is no big payday opportunity anymore, it's going to be very hard to attract anybody to work in show business. Not just as an actor, not just as a writer, but anybody who's below the line. Below the line talent is people who work on the set usually. So who's going to want to be anybody who works on any of these shows because they pay so low. They pay extremely low because it's almost like a waiter in the United States and tipping. Tips are built into what you're supposed to get. And, here in Hollywood, residuals have always been considered part of what you're getting paid, So they're like, oh, you're going to make money off the show for years, so that's going to be part of your payment. Mr. F says, I would love to pay for a show rather than streaming. I like rewatching things, but don't want to pay forever for them. Translation, give me Sandman on Blu-ray. Yeah, physical media. Streaming also killed physical media, which was a huge revenue stream for the studios and for all the talent involved, because you would get a piece of that as well. So let me first explain to you how Hollywood works, all right? So right now, nobody works, except for the executives, consistently in Hollywood. Nobody has a job that's guaranteed. It's a cyclical nature. You work on something for about maybe 3 months, show, or, if it's a movie, it's about 3 months. If it's a show, it's maybe about, 6 months, okay? So you only work for a period of time. So you're supposed to make enough money during that period to live off until you get your next gig. And then hopefully you would get a show or a movie which would have residuals, and that would also help you to live off of until you got your next gig, until maybe someday you hit it big. right? So working in Hollywood is really a gamble. You're gambling that one day you're going to be one of the few people who makes it big. Remember, most people in Hollywood make very little money. They can't even support themselves doing what they want to do. They have to have a secondary job. So Billy Porter is not consistently employed. So he can't gauge what his means are. Because, thanks for gifting a membership, Michael. Because he can't determine if he'll ever work again. A great quote from Kevin Kline is that he was sitting at home staring into space one day, and his daughter asked him what he was thinking about, and he said, "I'm just wondering if I'll ever work again." And I think that's a very big concern that everybody in the entertainment space has. Danny says, doesn't the Friends cast get millions in residuals? Yes, they do, because Friends is so popular that it still airs like on Channel 11, or, the CW used to run reruns. It still runs on like TV, cable. And then of course, they were hundreds of millions of dollars were paid for the streaming rights because it's so popular. But that Friends is, I think, sitcoms used to be, also the sitcom has been killed. And the sitcom was something that really, really generated a ton of revenue. So that's the way Hollywood works. Nobody is consistently employed except for the executives, the suits. Everybody else has to work on a cyclical nature. So that's important to remember. And then also don't forget the gambling aspect. But if there's no more big payoff, if you find out, if you make it so, people go to Vegas because they feel they could win a lot of money. Who would go to Vegas if you were told the house will always win for sure and you're never going to win? You're not going to go. I think there would be a real lack of talent, which is very scary for the business's future. Now, the other option could be if they want to keep streaming services, they could go back to the old studio system where people are employed by the studio. Then you're employed year round. You get health care benefits, but you're going to be paid a salary. And if your show does really big, you might get a bonus, but you're not going to participate the same way you would otherwise. That's the gamble that people, everybody decided to become a free agent. And it worked really well for a while. It worked incredibly well. So I don't think people would want to go back to the old system. So I really do feel that subscription-based streaming needs to go away. All right, so does anybody have any questions about this? And then we'll do the Q&A. Oh, we're doing well on time. We're doing well on time here. Let's see here. That's right, Jerome. Only 2% of actors have regular work. It's really a difficult job. Travis Parker Lee says, is there anything Hollywood can learn from the music industry? Music streaming can earn $1 on Apple Music with 125 streams and 314. Well, I think they could learn from that because, well, I'm not sure how Spotify and stuff works like that. I guess you're talking about Apple Music with the, I think it's a little bit different because less people work on music than on movies and TV. I think that's a little bit of an issue there. Lisa says, my trainer is a SAG member, is a stuntman, and he is losing money now because he isn't getting gigs. Yeah, it's really, really difficult. This strike is no joke. People are having to eat into their savings, and they probably will have to sell their homes. It's really bad. But there's no future for them if they don't do this. Zager Sword said, I'm still amazed that Bob Iger is, in one breath says the content on Disney Plus was low quality, and then in the next breath says that we're raising prices on said content. That was pretty gutsy. Thanks for gifting a membership, James. Trisha Mongers, Trisha, look, she's back in it. Trisha says, does Tom Hiddleston and Elizabeth Olsen get residual checks for their huge Marvel shows? I don't believe there are any residuals for streaming shows. That's the issue. So those people would get paid significantly up front. Although both of them, when they first made their deals, they didn't know if their shows were going to work out, and they didn't really work a lot. So I think they probably got paid moderately. I bet Tom Hiddleston got paid very well for his season 2. Mexican 8 Nacho says, Netflix broke Hollywood. Of course they made that much, being the only game in town and not producing any of their shows or movies. That's very generous of you, Tanya. Thank you for gifting a membership. Yeah, Mr. F gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think Netflix, is a very different type of company. It's totally different than everybody else. And nobody else can create that because they have a different business model. So yeah, and Netflix is eventually going to hit a wall where they can't get any more subscribers. AJ Jones says, as streaming as we know it fails, do you think that the studios will start pushing physical media again, or do you think that ship has sailed? I don't know. I don't like having physical media. I'm like, I don't have room for all this, and then I would forget that I had it. I like it being at my fingertips. I'm happy to pay for it a la carte, though. And I think that would be fine. Juanito Power says, how could streaming go away? I think that it would not. I mean, you could still stream stuff, but I think it would be, the change would be subscription, SVOD, versus pay video on demand. You know, it would change, you know, or ad video on demand. It would change from the subscription model. That's what would have to change. April says, do actors get residuals from fast services since they have ads? They should. Yes, they should on that, for sure. Nico says, Grace, are writers being paid more upfront now in the night? No, they're not really. Some of them are. Oh, look at Vera saying, thank you for the membership. That's so kind of you, Vera. I think no, because they're doing they're not paying them, and they're trying to have less writers on each project, and they're, you know, I think the writers are being treated quite poorly. Chadwick says, do you think paying talent more upfront would solve the problem? I think it wouldn't, because you'd only be paying the main. I think also shows would become prohibitively expensive, and also you'd only be paying the main talent, you know, the big names. What about all the people who are supposed to enjoy residuals? But everybody, I told you, I had like 3 lines in Zombieland 2, and I get residuals to this day, you know, and they were substantial for 3 lines. And, you know, so everybody gets to participate in residuals. And they weren't going to pay, I mean, they didn't pay me, oh no, I think I got paid scale. But yeah, like, you know, like, so it's not going to work. They can't do that up front. Hey, Tamika, I like your photo. All right, so let's just do the Q&A now. Hold on. All right, Q&A time. 10 minutes. Oh, this is great. I'm going to be on schedule and everything. So till 12:28. Dory Does Voices says, Grace, what do you think of a hybrid streaming model? Some content is free and more premium stuff is a la carte. There could be different tiers. I think that's a little bit too confusing, and I think it's, again, becomes too difficult to understand who's owed what. I think they just need to go back to this is how much your show brought in. I think, you know, trying to carve up the subscription fee and decide who's responsible for what is just too difficult. Francisco says, prediction, Tony's hologram will be made with AI and Armor Wars, and in the future, causing major drama with SAG. No, you can't do that. You can't replicate Robert Downey Jr. He can't be replicated. Robert Downey Jr. would also sue. Dancing Dog 60 says, Grace, since the streaming services are never going to lower prices, how high prices do you think the services will eventually go? Oh, that's a good point, Dancing Dog 60. I forgot to bring that up. Is streaming even viable? As they continue to hike the prices on all of them, who's going to have it's going to become more expensive than cable. Whereas before it was less expensive than cable. That was the whole selling point. So I think it's crazy. Fall 2, I am not SAG due to my involvement in Zombieland 2. You have to have a certain number of lines or be in a certain number of projects to qualify for SAG. So I guess that would count towards my qualifying for SAG if I did other things, but I am not a SAG member. SAG looks after everybody, even if you're not a SAG member. Thanks for gifting a membership, Dancing Dog 60. You just gifted some yesterday. Very generous of you. Look at Trisha. If Apple bought Disney, imagine Disney branded Apple products. Yeah, that's right. Put Mickey Mouse on my phone. I would maybe be tempted, although I don't know if Mickey Mouse goes with all of my outfits. Let's see here. Danny, I'm glad you're excited for Ahsoka. I'm excited. We need something to talk about. I mean, we've been finding stuff, but I'm excited for Ahsoka to come online. Jack says, never catch the lives. Just dropping in to say hi. Hope you're well, and thanks for the great content. My pleasure, Jack. I love getting to see you. I like your very avant-garde black and white photograph. Let's see here. I didn't hear what Rachel Zegler said. You guys are scaring me. It must have been awful to see so many of you turn on her. Let me see what she said. Duke said, hi, Grace. Recently, I've been dealing with insecurities and anxiety. As a guy, it's hard to even talk about it, but these streams are an escape for me, even if it's for a small amount of time. Duke, I'm sorry. You know, get your Kenergy. Have you seen Barbie? I think, you know, I think that would help you. You know, I think that the message there is so beautiful. And as I said the other day, I don't know if you heard me, Duke, but I think everybody's dealing with those same issues. And so you should know that it's not just you, and you're not alone, and everyone wrestles with those things. And I think that, I know it can feel tough as a guy to talk about those things, but I hope you're able to find someone that you feel like you could talk to, privately. There are a couple of online places that you could chat about stuff like that. And I think it's important. And even just thinking about it, I think will probably help you, So I think acknowledging it is half the battle right there. So good for you. And as I always say, good for you for looking after your mental health and finding something that can cheer you up. And I'm glad that is these streams and my videos. All right, let's see what Rachel Zegler said. This will cheer you up, Duke. Let's see what Rachel Zegler said. Like, she's not having enough problems with all her bombs. What'd she say? She just wants to get paid every hour? That doesn't seem that bad. I'm not understanding this. Shay says, it makes me sad that nobody is talking about Rhea Perlman's performance in Barbie. She was so good. She was great. I talked about it. I think there's a small chance she could get maybe nominated. Very tiny, but I think she did a wonderful job. DJ Shawn Michael says, did you see the new Castlevania Nocturne trailer? I did. I thought the animation looked a little off, to be honest with you. And I was a little disappointed that he wasn't a direct descendant of Trevor Belmont. I was like, no Papa, but Trevor Belmont. So I was a little disappointed. But I'll cover it, especially because nothing's happening. So I'll cover that. Sockley says, any Squid Game Season 2 news or spin-offs? I haven't heard anything, but I am very excited to see if that show can come back. It's like Barbie or Joker. Can they really come back with the sequel? Erwin says, hi, how long do you think theater subscription programs will last? I pay $24 a month and go about once a week. Yeah, it's great, Erwin. I have no idea how they make any money off of it. Maybe that's why AMC is thinking they might go broke. I have to declare bankruptcy. I was just thinking about this the other day when I went to see Gran Turismo. I was like, I can't believe it. I pay for one movie a month, and I go like at least once a week. It's amazing. I don't know how they do it. Oh, look, all the nice stuff for Duke. So much love. I love it. I love it. Let's see. Doop, 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 doop. Neutral Man 91 says, you excited for the new Taylor Swift re-release? I'm happy for Taylor, but I guess I'll get it for solidarity. I'll support Taylor. Trisha Monger says, I think once you mess with people's money, it becomes a huge problem, and these studios have the money to pay them. So unfair. That's right, Trisha. I always think of Dave Chappelle's famous quote, pay me, biatch. I'm going to edit it for streaming. And I loved that. I thought that was so true. Everybody's like, you have the prestige of working with us, and you're getting experience, whatever. And he's like, pay me my money. And I agree. Don't mess with people's money. That is a good rule in life. Hulkling loves Wiccan. Aw, I hope your stuff comes true. It says, did you watch Red, White, and Royal Blue? It's amazing. I did not. Although I did start Heartstopper, and I thought it was very sweet. Although they were running into trouble in episode. I only watched the first 2 episodes, and I was like, this relationship's already running into trouble. I think Charlie's parents are so unfair. His mother's handling that so poorly. I was like, of course he's going to sneak out of the house. Are you nuts? Alex says, hey, Grace, I don't think it's possible to do the pay-per-show model. People can afford a $15 a month subscription, not a $15 per... Well, then they'd have to... I think if they don't want to pay for it, then they'd have to be ads on it, like regular television, Alex. I think that would be the alternative. Mish says, Sue is the focus of the first Fantastic Four movie is interesting given the time period. Reed's wife, Johnny's sister, Ben's friend, Doom respects her too. Well, you don't know if anyone respects her. I don't know. I really don't want it to be a message movie. And you can't do it better than Barbie either. So I would be very nervous about that. Paul says, will you watch the new Frasier? I sure will. And I'm sad that David Hyde Pierce isn't on it. I hope that he changes his mind. But I'll definitely check out the new Frasier. I rewatched Frasier during the pandemic. It got kind of bad towards the end, some of the later seasons. But for the most part, it was an absolute delight. Alwatch says, Babette says, can you rank all the movie franchises in terms of what a bad place they are in right now? Maybe. Not right now. I think DC still is the worst. I think it would go DC, Marvel is the second worst, and then Star Wars, because I think Star Wars is rallying a little bit. And then I'll watch his favorite X-Men comic run and X-Men favorite movie. Getting really into X-Men right now. Well, that's awesome. I love the X-Men. X2 is by far and away my favorite X-Men movie. No contest. As for my favorite X-Men comic run, I do love Grant Morrison's new X-Men because of the juicy affair between Scott and Emma. I loved that. I thought that was great. Oh, look at everybody. More Duke comments. I love that. Charlie says, Grace, any Manhattan dinner recommendations? Oh, I'm not sure, Charlie. Try to eat outside. I think that's great. Nico says, Zegler said Snow White doesn't need a prince or a true love's kiss and that we're not living in 1937 anymore. She's proud of changing the Snow White character. Well, that seems like a really old statement because Frozen and Maleficent already addressed that. So I don't understand saying that. Dante says, do you think there is any money to be made in releasing beloved movies in theaters, re-releasing? And if so, could that be yet another incentive for a company like Disney to get into the theater business? No, well, I think the theater experience is so crummy right now that I don't think that would work. I think it's like, you're like, I can watch that at home. I don't think that'll work. Rick, thank you for your generosity. Rick says, Grace, if you were in James Gunn's position, what are the first 3 things you would do to correct course? Thanks for all that you do. My pleasure, Rick. I would full reboot. I would get all new people, 1,000%, okay? And then I would focus more on being an executive than a creative. You know, if you really want to be Kevin Feige, be Kevin Feige, you know? And I would not tweet. I would not tweet. I would try to act a little bit more professional. TV Table Tray says, is Bob Iger serious about making a deal with WGA and SAG, or is he just saving face? I mean, he can't make a deal all on his own anyway. He just said that, you know. I mean, he didn't even say it with enthusiasm. You know, he was like, yes, of course, we want to resolve it. Ha ha. Let's see here. Home. That's a funny name there. Says, seen Barbie 3 times, love it. Would like Warner Brothers to put a sing-along version in theaters. I was just listening to it this morning. I just love that I'm Just Ken song. I think it speaks to everyone, men and women. Sure, just a few songs to sing to, but darn it, I want to sing to them. It's a fantastic movie. It's so good. I love it so much. I can't wait for it to come on streaming. I think it's going to be in September, early September, and we will do a watch-along, and we'll do a watch-along that's open to everybody, so everybody can join in. Galliot Productions, no more DCUT at the moment, I'm afraid. Vincent, I've seen all of Harley Quinn season 4 except for the last episode, and I thought it was excellent. I'm very excited to see how it ends. Mika says, what kept you motivated when your channel was small? Oh, that's an interesting question, Mika. I think that I really enjoyed doing it, you know, and that I did see some growth, you know, so that was encouraging. And I just, you know, I was also there at the beginning, you know, when YouTube was just getting started. And so, you know, I think loving what you do is a really big part of anything if you want to try and be an entrepreneur. Jico says, and interestingly, I wrote comic books to keep myself financially afloat when I started my YouTube channel. So I did have a second job. Jico says, Grace, what are your thoughts on the Disney Princess Castle quest? Oh, I saw that. I don't know why they always make Snow White the butt of the jokes. I'm like, why? Poor Snow White. But I thought that was an interesting lineup of princesses. El Bukhari says, with China and Italy and South Korea, will we see Oppenbillion? I like that you made Oppenheimer into a billion name too. I don't know. Maybe. I don't think it will make a billion, but I think it will perform as a Christopher Nolan movie should, and it will do better than Dunkirk, which will be a real win for the film. Let's see here. I'm going to answer just a few more questions, and then I've got to go. Mandalorian Ace says, what is your favorite song from the Barbie soundtrack? Mine is Barbie Dreams by 50/50. 1,000%, I'm Just Ken is my favorite. Then after that, I like well, Lizzo has been canceled, but or semi-canceled, but I like the Pink song. And then I also like the Barbie dancing song, you know, the Dua Lipa one. I like that one. And I also kind of like hold on, let me look. I've been listening to so much, I've been exploring other things on there. I also like The Man I Am by Sam Smith and Journey to the Real World. I think that's pretty good. But I'm also really enjoying the score right now. I'm really loving the score. The score is great fun to listen to. That's right, Babette. The Harry Potter franchise is also in a bad place. Totally agree. Erwin says, why did Disney release Vault films in limited release on Disney Plus? Why didn't they do it in limited release instead of all at once? I think they wanted everybody to sign up right away. I think that was their goal, and it worked. But then I think it kind of diluted the specialness of the movies. Michael says, Oppenheimer, 900 million? Maybe. I still think 650 to 800 is what I feel good about. I'll watch his favorite thing you've gotten from a movies promo or press screening. You still have that box from back? I don't have place to store stuff, and I don't like saving stuff either. It's based on my horrible mold experience. I don't really save that much stuff anymore. I've become very immaterial. So that's my answer to that. And then Carter James says, hi, Grace, have you seen the Oh, we just talked about the Rachel Zegler thing. I don't know. I don't think Rachel Zegler is actually that popular because all of her movies don't do very well. But let's see. She's got 2 movies left to change it. Hunger Games and Snow White. And it's not going to be Snow White. But maybe it'll be Hunger Games. I heard Hunger Games was quite good, but that she wasn't particularly good. That's right, Danny. I did not keep that nun photo. My parents wanted to keep it, and I insisted that they couldn't have it. I was like, no one can have this. It's cursed. We can't have it in the house. And I got rid of it immediately. It's too weird. All right, everybody, I have to go or I'm going to be late. I had a wonderful time. Thank you so much for joining me for a very early stream. I think we had a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and I'll see you next week for 3 more streams. I think we might have some cool stuff next week. Let's see how it works out. We'll see. It depends on how slow it is, but definitely 3 streams next week. Okay, everybody, bye. Bye-bye.